There's one spot in your yard that beats you every single year. Maybe it's the bare ring of dirt under the big tree out front, where the grass gave up and the mulch washes thin by July. Maybe it's the gravelly seam along the driveway, or the strip beside the front walk where you've pulled the same weeds so many times you could do it in your sleep. Most weed advice tells you how to remove the weeds. Almost none of it tells you why those same 3 spots keep refilling no matter what you do. Here's the part those videos skip. The weeds aren't really the problem. They're a symptom. Open dirt is an invitation because a lot of weed seeds need light and bare soil to get started, and that bare spot hands them both. You pull what's there, and you've just reset the invitation for the next round. So today we're going to close that open ground with living plants instead of fighting over it every weekend. 9 ground covers, sorted by the exact problem spot each one fixes. Dry shade under trees, damp shade, sunny gaps between stepping stones, a hot, dry slope, bed edges, and the tricky ground right next to your lawn. And I'm going to be straight with you in a way a lot of these lists aren't. Ground covers reduce weeds. They don't end weeding, and they're not magic. They only work when you match the plant to the spot and give it a clean start. On top of that, 2 of the most popular plants on every other weed list can turn into a bigger headache than the weeds if you put them in the wrong place. I'll show you which ones, and the calmer swaps that do the same job without trying to eat your yard. A little groundwork first, because it's the difference between cover that lasts and a bed that looks worse in 2 years. Mulch helps, but mulch is a lid. It breaks down, it slides off slopes, it blows out of windy corners, and every spring you're buying it again. A living ground cover does what mulch does, and then keeps doing it. It shades the soil so fewer seeds wake up, and it fills the space above and below ground so the seeds that do sprout have nothing to grab onto. That's the honest mechanism: shade, space, and competition. You'll also hear that some of these plants chemically poison weeds, something called allelopathy. Be a little skeptical. There's real research on it in farm cover crops, but it's inconsistent. And in a normal yard, the dependable work is done by covering the ground densely and holding it. So if a plant tag or a video promises something that chemically erases weeds, lower the volume on that and judge the plant by one thing: how completely does it close the soil? And here's the rule that sits under all 9 of these. A ground cover can only win if it gets a clean start. If you plug little plants into ground that's already full of established weed roots, the weeds are bigger, faster, and ahead of you, and they'll win during the one season your new plants are most fragile. So before you plant, clear the area. For a small bed, dig out the perennial weed roots, wait 2 or 3 weeks, and pull whatever resprouts before you plant. For a bigger patch, lay plain cardboard over the cleared ground, wet it, and cover it with a few inches of wood chip mulch. Cut an X to plant through it. That smothered, cleaned ground is what lets the ground cover take over instead of the other way around. Now the plants. Let's start with the hardest weedy spot most homeowners have: the dry shade right under a mature tree. The grass thinned out, the soil is packed, and the tree drinks most of the water before anything else gets a turn. People throw mulch at it. The weeds find the mulch anyway, and around you go. The plant built for that exact misery is Epimedium, also called barrenwort or bishop's hat. It's a low, slow-spreading perennial that grows from tough little rhizomes and ends up about 8 to 12 inches tall, with wiry stems and heart-shaped leaves that catch a reddish tint in spring and fall. Once it's established, it genuinely shrugs off dry shade, which almost nothing else does. Most types are hardy from about zone 4 to zone 8, with some pushing to 9. Give it part to full shade. It scorches in hot full sun, so this is a shade tool, not a sunny bed tool. It likes decent, well-drained soil to settle in, then handles drought once the roots are down. The honest part? Epimedium is slow. It spends its first year or two building roots, and if you check it in August expecting a carpet, you'll be disappointed. That's the normal pace, not a failure. Because it's slow, plant it closer than you'd think, around 12 inches apart, and keep the bare gaps weeded that first season while it knits. One easy maintenance trick is to shear the old foliage off in late winter, right before the new growth pushes, so spring comes in clean. Deer tend to leave it alone, which is a bonus under trees where deer often browse. If that tree corner is dry, Epimedium is your answer. But not every shady spot is dry, and the wet ones need something completely different. If your shaded spot stays moist instead of bone dry, a low corner, the north side of the house, a bed that holds water after rain, then the plant for it is Foamflower, Tiarella cordifolia. It's a native from the eastern woodlands, so it actually belongs in that cool, damp, leafy soil, and it looks the part. Low mounds of maple-shaped leaves, often with dark veining, topped with soft spikes of creamy white flowers in spring. The running types spread by stolons, little surface runners that root as they go. So over a couple of seasons, a few plants will weave into a low carpet that shades the ground and keeps weed seedlings from finding daylight. It's a polite spreader, not a bully, which is exactly what you want in a bed you care about. It's hardy roughly zone 4 to 9. The one condition it will not forgive is drought. Foamflower wants steady moisture and rich, humusy soil, and it does not want to bake in afternoon sun. Put it in a dry, sunny spot and it'll thin out, and thin cover is just an open door for weeds again. Space plants 12 to 18 inches apart. Keep it watered through that first summer, and let it close the gaps on its own. Because it's native, the spring flowers feed early bees, and deer mostly pass it by. So dry shade gets Epimedium, damp shade gets Foamflower. Now what about a big shaded area where you just want one clean, even sheet of green? That's where the most popular answer is also the one I'd push back on. For large shaded patches, the plant everyone reaches for is Japanese pachysandra, Pachysandra terminalis. It's at every garden center. It's glossy and evergreen, and it does form a tidy carpet. Here's why I'd steer you somewhere else. Japanese pachysandra is reported as invasive in around 15 states. It spreads underground and doesn't know where your bed ends. And it has a habit of escaping into woodlands and stream banks and smothering native wildflowers like trilliums. In a tight city bed, it may behave, but near any natural area, it's a real problem. The swap I'd plant instead is its American cousin, Allegheny spurge, Pachysandra procumbens. It's native to the southeast, it's not invasive, and it spreads slowly into well-mannered patches a couple of feet wide instead of running off across the property. The leaves are a softer matte green that pick up silvery mottling in fall, and the early spring flowers are small, white, and genuinely fragrant. It's deer and rabbit resistant, and it gives you that same calm, even shade carpet without the guilt. It does best in zones 5 through 9, in shade, in soil that drains. Avoid heavy clay and don't overwater it. Set plants about 6 to 12 inches apart, water it the first season, and be patient, because like a lot of native ground covers, it takes a couple of years to look like a finished planting. As far as pets go, this isn't a high-risk plant like lilies, but it's not something you want a dog grazing on either. So it's a fine background plant, not a snack. That's the shade lineup. Let's step out into the sun, starting with the spot where weeds love to grow, right where you walk. The cracks between stepping stones and pavers in full sun are weed factories. They're warm, they're open, and they're hard to weed without crawling around on the path. The classic fix is creeping thyme, Thymus serpillum, and its relatives, and most people use it wrong. Here's the mistake. People tuck in one little plant as an accent, give it rich soil, water it like a flower, and wonder why it sulks. Creeping thyme wants the opposite of pampering. It's a sun-loving mat that stays only a couple of inches tall, and it does best in lean, gritty, well-drained soil with no extra fertilizer. Rich soil makes it floppy and weak. Poor, sunny, sharp-draining ground is where it knits into a tight, walkable carpet that crowds weeds out of the gaps. It's hardy about zone 4 to 9, handles light foot traffic, and in early summer, the whole mat covers itself in tiny pink to purple flowers that bees absolutely swarm. That's worth knowing if you've got little ones who go barefoot on the path, because where there's thyme in bloom, there are bees. 2 honest notes. First, it's slower to fill than the internet suggests, so plant it densely, around 8 to 12 inches apart in the gaps, and keep those gaps weeded while it spreads. Second, it wants drainage and sun. In wet clay or shade, it thins out and the weeds walk right back in. Match it to a hot, well-drained path, and it earns its keep for years. Now let's take on the spot people dread most, the slope. Picture the slope you hate mowing. It's too steep to mow safely, the mulch slides to the bottom every time it rains, and bare, sunny, disturbed dirt on an incline is about the friendliest place on earth for weeds. Reseeding grass barely holds. So stop fighting it and cover it. For a hot, dry, full-sun bank, my pick is creeping juniper, Juniperus horizontalis, the low, spreading evergreen sold in cultivars like Blue Rug and Blue Chip. It's a North American native that hugs the ground at 6 to 18 inches tall and spreads several feet wide. And its roots are genuinely good at holding a slope together and stopping erosion. Because it's evergreen, it covers that ground all year, including winter, when a lot of other ground covers have died back and left the soil open. It's hardy zone 3 to 9, wants full sun, and needs well-drained soil. It will not tolerate soggy ground, so this is a dry slope plant, not a low wet spot plant. Once established, it's very drought tolerant, and deer tend to leave it alone, which is a big deal on an exposed bank. The catch with low junipers is exactly the catch with any ground cover. While the plants are young and short, weeds can still germinate in the open space between them. So plant them at the spacing the label gives for that cultivar's mature spread, and keep the slope weeded for the first season or two until the mats close. After that, the maintenance basically drops to occasional cleanup. One small heads up. In hot, dry summers, junipers can get spider mites, and a strong spray of water from the hose now and then helps knock them back. Quick pause. If you've made it this far, I want to hear your toughest spot. Drop a comment with your USDA zone or your state and tell me which one keeps winning at your house. Dry shade under a tree, a gravel strip, a slope, a bed edge? That tells me what to dig into next. And honestly, the regional answers from other folks in the comments are some of the most useful stuff on the whole channel. Now let's tidy up the front of the border. Here's a spot that's less about a weed disaster and more about the slow creep of weeds along the front of a bed, where the mulch line meets the lawn and crabgrass keeps sneaking in. A low spreading ground cover there does double duty. It closes that open edge, and it gives you something better to look at than bare mulch. A plant I wish more people knew about for this is Leadwort, also sold as dwarf or hardy plumbago, Ceratostigma plumbaginoides. It's a low, mat-forming perennial about 6 to 10 inches tall, and its trick is timing. It leafs out late in spring, then in late summer and into fall. When most borders are looking tired, it throws out these true gentian blue flowers, and the foliage turns a deep bronze red. It's covering ground the whole time, but it saves its best look for the part of the season when you need it. It's hardy zone 5 to 9, takes full sun to part shade, and wants well-drained soil. It hates wet feet. It spreads by underground rhizomes and can be moderately aggressive in ideal conditions. So this is a keep-it-edged plant rather than a set-it-and-forget-it plant. But it's not classified as invasive, and it's easy to keep in bounds with a spade. Because it emerges late, it's a great partner over spring bulbs, filling in as the bulb leaves fade. Space it about 10 to 16 inches apart. 2 practical notes. The sap can irritate sensitive skin, so wear gloves when you cut it back. And deer tend to skip it. It is not generally treated as a high-risk pet plant, but I still would not plant it where a dog is likely to chew on it. Speaking of keeping things in bounds, that's the whole story for the next few plants, because this is where ground covers go wrong. A lot of weed pressure happens right where a bed meets the lawn, and that's the trickiest place to put a spreading ground cover, because anything that runs will run straight into your grass. So near the lawn, you want a plant that stays put. The right tool here is clumping Liriope, Liriope muscari, the one sold as big blue lily turf or monkey grass. It forms tidy, grassy mounds about a foot tall that slowly widen and weave together into a dense, weed-resistant edge with purple flower spikes in late summer. The key word is clumping. It expands gently from the crown and stays roughly where you plant it, so it makes a clean, controllable border along a walk or a lawn edge. It's tough across zones 5 to 10, takes sun to fairly heavy shade, is evergreen in milder areas, and deer and rabbits usually pass it by. It's also listed as non-toxic to cats and dogs. Now the warning, because this is where people get burned. There's a near identical cousin, creeping Liriope, Liriope spicata, and that one runs hard by underground rhizomes. It is flagged as invasive or not recommended in some southeastern regions, including by Florida Extension guidance, and it can be genuinely hard to dig out once it is established. It will not respect your lawn edge, and it's genuinely hard to dig out once it's in. So read the label. You want muscari, the clumper, not spicata, the runner. One more honest caveat for southern gardeners. Birds eat Liriope berries and can move the seed around. So even with the clumping type, in the southeast, it's worth keeping an eye on stray seedlings. For a part shade bed where you want coverage without the warning label, look at green and gold, Chrysogonum virginianum. This is one of those native ground covers that looks too cheerful to be useful, and that is probably why more homeowners do not use it. It stays low, usually only a few inches tall, with soft green leaves and small yellow star-shaped flowers in spring. In the right spot, it forms a low mat that covers the soil without acting like it owns the whole neighborhood. Green and gold is especially useful along the front of a part shade border, under open shrubs, or in a bed edge that gets morning sun and afternoon shade. It spreads by short rhizomes and stolons, but the spread is usually easy to control. That makes it a much better fit for a homeowner who wants fewer weeds without signing up for a future removal project. It is most useful in the eastern half of the country, especially the mid-Atlantic and southeast, because that is where it naturally belongs. Think zones 5 through 8 or 9, depending on the cultivar and your local conditions. Give it part shade, reasonably well-drained soil, and some moisture while it gets established. In hotter areas, protect it from harsh afternoon sun. The honest limit is that it is not the plant for bone-dry shade under a thirsty maple, and it is not the plant for a blazing sidewalk strip. Use Epimedium for the dry shade problem, and creeping thyme or juniper for hot, dry sun. Green and gold belongs where the bed has some shade, some moisture, and you want a polite living carpet instead of another plant you have to referee. If all that containment talk makes you nervous, Here's the plant for the person who just wants coverage and zero drama. If you want a ground cover that fills in, looks good, and never makes you regret it, plant barren strawberry, Geum fragarioides, still sold under its old name, Waldsteinia. It's a native, low, evergreen mat, about 3 to 6 inches tall, with glossy strawberry-like leaves that pick up bronze tones in winter and cheerful little yellow flowers in mid-spring. The name comes from the fact that it makes no edible fruit, so the birds won't be planting it all over your yard. What makes it special on this list is restraint. It spreads by short rhizomes into a dense mat, but it's genuinely non-aggressive, so you can tuck it along a path, at the front of a bed, or as a green carpet between shrubs and trust it not to take over. It's hardy roughly zone 3 to 7 and takes full sun to part shade in well-drained soil. The one honest limit. It's a cool climate plant that struggles in the heat and humidity of the deep south. So this is a northern and mid-Atlantic and mountain region pick more than a Gulf Coast one. That's the 9. Before we wrap, one quick list of ground covers I'd skip for this job because they solve weeds by becoming a worse weed. English ivy, periwinkle in many regions, lily of the valley, and the creeping Liriope we already covered. They're sold as easy answers, and they escape into woods and stream banks all over the country. If you want easy coverage, lean on the native and well-behaved options instead, and check your local extension's ground cover list, since the right and wrong choices really do change by region. If you'd rather know where a plant belongs before you spend money on it than find out the hard way in year 3, that's the whole point of this channel. Subscribe before you click away, and keep choosing plants for the spot you actually have. Here's how I'd actually start, so this doesn't sit in the back of your mind as one more project. Pick the single spot that's beaten you the longest. Figure out 2 things about it: how much sun it really gets, and whether the soil stays damp or dries out fast. Match it to the one plant on this list that fits those 2 answers. Clear that spot properly before you plant. Set the plugs a little tighter than the tag says, and commit to weeding it through the first season while it fills in. Do that for one spot this spring, and by next year you should be pulling far fewer weeds there. You're just looking at something that finally looks finished. Then you move on to the next spot, and the yard gets easier every season instead of harder.